Hi there, I'm Vita King Blanchard from Rooted Arts. Thank you for joining me for today's video on working on our posterior legs and gluteal area. Again, I have Eric modeling for me because he's super generous with his time. Also, he gets the benefits of massage, right? So not so bad. So like with everything that we do on the table, we just want to stay in that range of gentle comfort. So on that 0 to 10 scale of intensity, we're going to shoot to stay around a 3 or a 4 so that we're kind of pushing against the lowest boundary without having the person that we're working on go into a place where it feels challenging or like they have to breathe through it or brace through it, right? Because that would add extra tension in the body. And I'm always going to start with just assessment, looking at the alignment of the body in front of me. So since I'm focusing on the gluteal area and posterior leg today, I'm going to look at how Eric's hips line up with his shoulders. And so for you just want to think about like our shoulder blades stick out. That's an easy bone to see. Our hip bone is pretty pronounced. And if you can't visually see it, which you will be able to with practice, right? With practice, we become better at everything and get to see things in more depth. But you can feel it. You can feel the hip bone and the sacrum coming out, right? So you can just kind of palpate around in there. And even this feels good. Like our backs, our glutes can take more pressure, and typically. And they're big muscles, right? So we can really go in there with our fist. So I'll get back to that in a minute. But to start with, I'm just going to look at the assessment, the alignment of his body, and see where his lines are and where there's maybe a shift. And that's something to just keep in mind while I'm working on him. And to kind of see what is tension that he's holding and what is just the way that he laid down on the table. I'm going to start by, first I have this bolster under his ankles, and you probably would use a pillow at home. But I'm going to start by just lifting up his ankles with my hands gently on his feet and ankle area and pulling toward me. And this allows his hips to start releasing, and it's gentle. I'm still staying in that range of comfort, that low threshold. And I can feel the body easing into a new position and shifting a little. And when I look, I can see that the alignment has already started to shift, has already started to go back. And now, because Eric's feet have a tendency to kind of turn toward each other, I'm just supporting the alignment from his base by pushing on the outside of his foot toward his head. And I'm bracing with the back of my fingers, because every point of contact is an opportunity to support and work. And just doing some nice compressions, hold, compress, and push. Now I'm just kind of working his malleoli, these bones that stick out in the ankle, because a lot of things attach in that area. So I'm just doing some gentle microfiber, right? Some little frictions against the fibers of the muscle. As always, you want to stay conscious of your posture. It's one of the funny byproducts of me working on camera, is seeing myself and doing postural check-ins. And at home, you can always set up a mirror just to make sure that your posture is staying in alignment, because ultimately it's going to keep you more comfortable. And the more comfortable you are, the more comfortable the person that you're working on can be. So now that I've just done a very rough, simple assessment and alignment, I'm going to go into his gluteal area, and I'm going to go back to just doing these compressions with my fists. So I'm still staying in that range of comfort. Like I said earlier, you can use a little bit more pressure in this area. And so you want to check in with your person. Eric, what does this feel like? What number intensity?
I'm about a 2 or a 3.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm giving a decent amount of pressure. It still feels like a 2 or a 3 to him. And now I've found an area that feels a little bit tighter. And as you palpate, as you touch more, you'll learn to feel that. And you probably already have a sense of it just from yourself, like an area that feels a little more taut. Like if you were thinking about like a rubber band that was stretched, the surface of skin kind of feels like that. When it's tight, it feels taut. And when it's loose, it feels a little looser. And so I'm doing that cross fibering, that small micro friction against that area, against the bone where I know that those muscles and tendons attach, and just allowing it to release. And I'm going to cross over the body to do the other side so that you can see a little more easily without me blocking you. I would suggest that you go around to the other side because probably that's going to be more comfortable for your posture. And same thing, I'm creating pressure and doing some micro friction. And I can see, right, in my assessment, and now I'm confirming it, that this hip is a little bit lower than this hip, and that there's a little bit of a twist across the back. Now I'm not addressing the back, but the back will get some release from releasing the gluteal area. So I'm actually going to lift up on his hip and kind of just encourage the body to lift itself. I guess I think about it as I'm illustrating to the body where it would be more comfortable. And because our bodies are so amazing, when we give them the opportunity to become more comfortable, they typically do. And I'm doing a little bit of cross fiber on this bony protrusion on the side of his hip, right? Which is an easy thing to feel. You just feel around for where that leg bone comes in and joins into the hip. You can feel the bone sticking out. And anytime we have a bony protrusion, it's going to be a hot spot for attachments. And this one feels a little bit tighter than the other side. And what I'm looking for, I'm now palpating both sides, is a feeling of balance of tension. Because even if we don't get rid of all of the tension, most discomfort comes from just being out of balance. All right, so you can continue palpating and doing those microfiber frictions in the gluteal area, and it's going to continue to feel good. Now I'm going to move down into the hamstrings. Now, typically, our hamstrings, often people complain about hamstrings feeling tight, and typically that actually comes from having tight quads or our thighs in the front, right? And it's similar to the back. Our hamstrings are one of those areas that get hyperextended or pulled too far. So I want to soothe them, but I don't want to really go into the muscle and do deep work. If I want to do a little bit deeper work, I can do similar work to what I just did on the glutes, on the quads. And you can revisit my first leg massage video where I talked more about that. But getting into the quads, and I'm just pulling his blanket back so that you can see more easily. But going into the hamstrings right now, I'm just going to warm up with some nice soft touch and compression. And while I do that, I'm supporting it by holding on to, again, a bony protrusion on the side of the knee here, right? So we have this bone that sticks out, coming up from our shin and comes to close to our knee. And holding on to that is going to, while I gently compress his hamstring area, is going to feel nice. And it's going to release some musculature in an easy way and warm up that area that is between our calves and the rest of our body. Also give the hamstring some attention, because even when things are hyperextended, so we don't really want to like work on them, those are often the areas that just want a little bit of soothing touch because they've been feeling yucky for a while. So now that so on the side of our legs is the IT band, which kind of gets action from lots of places because it's pretty big. So it attaches up high on the hip, and it turns into a tendon and attaches down low by that bony protrusion. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time just doing some cross fiber on that band because I can feel that he needs it. And that is also going to help the hip to rebalance. How does that feel?
Wonderful.
What number would you give it?
About a 3 or 4.
3 or 4.
Yeah.
So we're still in that range of comfort, and I'm just pushing against that lower threshold. And I'm using the weight of his body to kind of make this easier on me, because the easier it is on me, the more relaxed I can say, you know. And so I'm lifting and allowing his body to pull him back down, which is creating a cross fiber compression feeling and allowing his muscles to release. And now I'm holding onto that bony protrusion on the hip, doing a little bit of jostling, which is just moving around while I do cross fiber with my fingertips, using the flat of my hand to kind of jostle and shake, remind the body, bring the attention here, and the cross fiber on that attachment site of the bone to just help release it. And I'm doing just some bracing at the bottom of the muscle. Now, like I talked about with that rubber band, as I pull up top, I can feel the pull down below. And creating that tension, again, it's just bringing attention of the body to that area to support it and releasing. So the IT band on this side, the side closer to me, is not as tight. And again, I'm looking for balance, especially since this is a quick demo, right? So now that he's feeling pretty well balanced, I'm going to move down into his calves. I'm just covering him up to make sure he stays warm. Which probably isn't a problem for him. And I can see again, right, his feet have kind of fallen into a shifted position as I have shifted up above them. So again, I'm going to go in and do that pull. And just going to sway a little bit. Invite his hip, the alignment between his hip and feet to kind of settle with this new relaxation that it's found. And again, I'm going to push up on the outer part of his foot toward his head, creating nice compression, which allows the feet to release and invites his legs to start rebalancing. Now, our calves often get tight. So, and because they're bigger muscle, I'm going to use more of that, like a little bit more aggressive stuff, like I did on the glutes. I'm putting a little bit of oil on my hands because I've got bare skin. And the traction of skin on skin really warrants some kind of lubricant, like an oil or a lotion. Otherwise, you can end up irritating the skin and just won't feel as good. Now, spreading oil is another contact. It's another opportunity to just do some nice glides, some nice compression. And in doing this, you can really get a sense of where it feels tight and, where the alignment is by looking. So it's touch and look, touch and sight. And I can feel that there's a lot of tension on the outside of his legs, and the inside of his legs are pretty loose. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just turning his calves out to allow those muscles that feel tight on the outside here to have space to relax. It's like I'm taking away the amount that they need to stretch. And I'm doing a little bit of jostling while I hold it, which is just like slight shaking, right? And now I'm going to move to his right calf. So I'm using my thumbs on the outside to create friction on that muscle that felt tight while I pull the inside up. Kind of similar to what I was doing on the hip and the IT band up above. And those muscles are ready to relax, so they are just going for it. To try and show you over here, I'm pushing down with my thumbs on that exterior tightness and pulling up with my hands. So it's not a great position, but to try and just show you. So pushing down, pulling up, pushing down, pulling up. And if there is an area that you feel called to spend a little bit of time in, a little bit of extra time, and just bring in some of that cross fiber, stay gentle in that range of comfort, keep it easy. Now I'm going to use the calf and the foot to kind of encourage the alignment that I want to see, to encourage a straighter line. So I'm going to brace the foot with my one hand and then glide up the calf while pushing toward his head again. So I'm kind of combining a couple of moves here. I'm using this thumb on his foot to create a little pressure on the outside toward his head. I'm using my hand on the top of the foot here to pull it towards the midline of his body. And what intensity would you say this is, Eric?
3.
Yeah. So it's right against, the 3 is right against that lower threshold. This is comfortable. Just encouraging it to realign. And I'm going to repeat that over here. So lifting up, using the back of my hand to pull and pushing with my thumb against the outside of his foot toward his head and gliding up. And because on this side, you can switch hands for this position. You can do whatever's more comfortable for you. But since my fingers are on the outside where I've been finding more tight, I'm going to use them to do my cross fibering. And when I reach that point of balance, I'm going to check in and make sure that there's nothing else that's really calling to me to be addressed. Go back into those compressions on the foot, encouraging that alignment. A little bit of cross fibering around the ankles. And then I'm going to look one more time at what his general alignment looks like. The area between his feet and hips, his hips and shoulders. And it looks much nicer, much easier, and much more comfortable. So that's our demo for today. Thank you so much for joining me. You can catch me next week at 12:30 for another demo. And like and subscribe to get notified about meditations or other random videos coming up. I love you. I love me. I love us. I'll see you soon.